Kim. How are you doing today? And we're ready. So we'll start with morning warm-up. The lighting is very good today, isn't it? Yeah, it's a very clear day. I like this shawl. Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm so happy to be here with all of you. So we will start with some vocal warm-ups, as usual. If you'd like to breathe with me, you can take a deep breath in now. And exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. And we're going to try to make a tone with our exhalation that is as low and clear as possible. Whatever low and clear means to you. Ready? Inhale. I'm glad to be here with you, Meg. Right? It's an algorithmic accident every time. But I'm glad to be here with you. So we will continue our vocal warm-up. Now we'll go a little bit higher. I usually pick a tone right at the edge of my range of one vibratory mode, M1, and then I'll move into falsetto. You're doing it with me. Great. So, let's take a deep breath in, and on our exhalation, make a tone that is higher, just as high as you can go without switching into falsetto, if that means anything to you. Ready? Take a deep breath in. Pay attention to your spine and pelvis, head and neck. And exhale with a tone. What am I doing? I'm warming up my voice. I actually made a mistake there. That was higher than I wanted. Let me see if I can find the right note. That note. That note is very difficult for me, so I try to practice it every day and see how long I can hold it. Done better. And now we'll go higher. Now we'll go into true falsetto. And it'll last a while. Ready? Take a deep breath in. Good enough for today, I suppose. Some days are better than others. How is today going for you all? My throat might be a little bit rusty, but I'm having a really nice morning. Thanks for being patient with me. I said I was going to be on an hour ago, and I wasn't. That felt good. Good. I'm glad. It's good to breathe together. I'm going to be teaching pranayama on my server soon. As soon as I finish this lecture prep. First, Glomer-Mycota lecture, then ethnomycology lecture, then pranayama. Your day is going well. Good. So, we can start our morning prayers with a set of words from the book of Deuteronomy that start with the word listen, Shema. I have not eaten breakfast yet, and these days I've been eating breakfast on my Discord server with a smaller core group of community people, because that feels more valuable for me to be focusing on. But sometimes the core group of community people don't show up, and then I have breakfast on TikTok. You're enjoying your day off work. Well, that's good. Let me turn off this heater. Don't need the heater on anymore. What are my pronounces? Well, let's pronounce the word Shema. Shema means listen in Hebrew. Shema Yisrael Asher Eloheinu Yahweh Echad. Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate it when other people in the audience answer that question for me. Ishtaris, hi. How are you? It's been a while. I'm glad you're here. And Vintage Wildflower, hi. And Katie, all my friends are here. Oh, that's so nice. Thank you all for being here. Shema Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad. Listen, Israel. Yahweh Eloheinu, Asher Echad, are one, like a serpent that eats its tail. Yes, I'm Jewish. Hey. Vintage Wildflower, I'm sure that's not your name. I can call you that, though, but I'd like to know what your actual name is. Hope to be a friend. Yes, we can be parasocial friends. Yes, we can. Happy Sukkot. Happy Sukkot. I'm glad you're well, Ishtaris. ואהבת את ענת אלוהיך ובכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ולכתך בדרך ובשכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. Do I do magic? It depends on how you define magic. Thank you for letting everyone know what my pronouns are. I appreciate not having to answer that question. Instead, I get to talk to the people who are talking to me. It's great. So what does that prayer mean? How many of you have heard that prayer before? I assume at least a handful of you. It's difficult to know. Have you heard that prayer before? Let me know in the comments if you've heard it. And what does it mean? Ve'ahavta, and you shall love. And you shall love Yahweh Eloheinu with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. And these words that I am speaking to you today, amidst a cacophony of roses from our friend Wildflower, these words, teach them to your children. Repeat them when you rise up and when you go to bed, when you are at home and when you are away. You shall bind them as a symbol on your hand, Yahweh Echad, a symbol on your hand, and let them serve as a sign on your forehead. And you shall inscribe them on the doorposts of your houses and on your gates. How many of you have heard those words before? How many? It's called the Shema prayer. Well, Shema is usually how the first 6 words are referred to. Shema Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad. 6 words. Shema. And then the second prayer, which just comes immediately after in the book of Deuteronomy, they were written by the same group of people, probably the same hand, at the same time. The next sequence is called the Ve'ahavta, and you shall love, right? Meditation on loving. You have Yuki. And you, Tina. Good. Beautiful. In that prayer, the second part, the Ve'ahavta, and you shall love, is a meditation on repetition, right? A repetition meditation, where the words of the prayer ask you to say the prayer. They contain themselves like a serpent eating its tail. And I think that's quite beautiful. And so I've been saying those words every day when I wake up in the morning for the last 7 years. And I expect I will say them every day for the rest of my life, give or take. You love Hebrew words in the Shema. It feels deeper and richer to listen. And I've changed them, right? I insert the name of Asherah, which maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. But I do, for better or for worse. And then there's one more sequence of words from this book of Deuteronomy, chapter 6, that I repeat after that. Who is Asherah? Asherah was a goddess who was worshipped by the Israelites before the fall of the Israelite kingdom to the Assyrians in 722 BCE. And after that point, her worship was severely curtailed until it was eventually eliminated completely after the Babylonian exile. A goddess, Yahweh's wife. Right? We can have an image of her. Right, so this is a bit of pottery that was found on the Sinai Peninsula. Right, and the inscription above here reads Yahweh and his Asherah. So here's Yahweh, Asherah, El, perhaps Canaanitic deities. She's Yahweh's husband and El's husband. The Queen of Heaven, yes, she's a husband, isn't she? I love that. I love that so much. You might have heard her called by other names, perhaps Shekinah. In medieval Judaism, she was referred to as the Shekinah. Name changed. The deity also changed, but maintained the divine feminine function. So, the next words in the book of Deuteronomy go like this. V'chaya. Ki v'chaya Elohecha, el ha'aretz asher nisbai lavotecha, le'avram Yitzchak u'Yaakov. לתת לך עברים גדולות וטובות אשר לא בנית, ובתים מלאים כל דבר אשר לא מילאת, וברות עצובים אשר לא הסת בה, כהרים בזיתים אשר לא נטעת, והלכת ושבת. הישמר לך פן תשכח את יהוה אשר תישארך מארץ מצרים מבית עבדים. What does that last word mean? Avadim, bondage. This is a scary prayer. Scary set of words. The house of bondage. Me'eretz Mitzrayim, mi bet avadim. So what are we talking about the house of bondage for? Well, the full prayer. When Yahweh Eloheinu brings you into the land that he swore to your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to assign to you, great and flourishing cities that you did not build, houses full of all good things that you did not fill, hewn cisterns that you did not hew, vineyards and olive groves that you did not plant, and you eat your fill. Take heed that you do not forget Yahweh, who freed you from the land of Egypt, the house of bondage. It's a land acknowledgement. That's what we could, in modern terms, say that prayer is, right? It's an acknowledgement that there were people who lived here before us, right? People who built our houses and our cities and our cisterns and our vineyards, right? I live in Oneida land. This is the time of the live stream where I acknowledge that. I live in Oneida land. This land was stolen from them. Land was stolen from the Oneida people, such that I might live in it. Right? That's not the only land theft that I could speak to in my history, right? My grandparents had their land stolen by the Nazis, such that others might live in it, and others live in it now. They don't live there anymore. They came here, to a different occupied territory, and made their home here. So we live on stolen land. What does that mean? Like, what are the implications of we live on stolen land? Well, we can at least meditate on it, right? Whose land do you live on? In what language are these prayers? These prayers are in Hebrew. But whose land do you live on, right? If I live in Oneida land, whose land do you live on, right? Ishtaris, I'm sure you know. You've told me. You've answered that question before, but it's worth answering again. As colonizers, we live on stolen land. Yeah. I don't know why I'm speaking like this. You don't know that much about me, but I love the way I'm acting and looking. Well, I'm glad you like the performance. We live on God's land. Well, perhaps. I mean, that's also the claim, right? The claim of the prayer is twofold. Not only is the land stolen, but it is God's, ultimately, right? It is Yahweh's to give and to take, right? And so we ought to remember Yahweh and remember that he gave us this land, because if we forget, the threat is that he might take it away from us. He does that from time to time. The land belongs to the earth, to Gaia, to the planet. Oh, it's not the airport. You don't need to announce your departure. You live on how do I pronounce that? Wurundjeri land, in the Kunli nation of Narm. You live in Haudenosaunee land. It's good to know this. It's a good thing to remember. Remember that. Baruch atah Yahweh, Eloheinu melech haolam, shelo ashani isha. I repeat the name of Yahweh Eloheinu, who did not make me a woman. I did. Baruch atah Asherah, Anat Malacha Haolam, Asher Yitzaret Ha'adam B'chachama Uvara V'o. I repeat the name of Asherah Anat, who made me with many openings and cavities, including the cavity which is making my voice right now, whether it's deep or high. Good morning, cat. Good morning, cat. I hope you have a beautiful day too, Alex. Alexis. Sorry, sometimes it's hard to read the full name. Hey, kitty. You're a cutie one. Gaia is considered a living creature of the universe. I mean, James Lovelock thinks so. How am I this morning? I'm well. Right, like, when I was younger, I used to be very interested in theories like the Gaia hypothesis that claim that the Earth is an organism. And what I found was that the state of modern biology is not actually in a state where you can make claims like that. We don't have a good definition of organism. So if you don't have a good definition of organism, you can't claim that the Earth is one. Because people will just tell you that your definition of organism is wrong. But by some definition of organism, sure, the Earth is one. Not a very useful one. Too vague, unfortunately. But yes, I do think that the Earth is alive. I do think the Earth has some strange kind of selfhood. Do my parents support me in my beliefs? Yes and no. My father thinks that I am a marijuana addict, and I am delusional because I smoke too much marijuana, and I've become thinking that I'm a woman. And he's right that I'm a marijuana addict, as much as I don't want to admit it. But it's not the reason why I'm trans. But if we call her a person, people might start having a better relationship with her. Yes, you're right, it might be a metaphor. It might just be a metaphor. And a useful metaphor, right? Just as Asherah is a metaphor, right? Asherah isn't alive, isn't a self in any kind of sense where you can point to her and be like, where's Asherah, right? But nonetheless, it is helpful to imagine Asherah as a kind of person, and therefore to respect her and have a better relationship with her. I agree with you completely. Gajananam Bhuttaganati Sevitam Kapita Jambupalasara Bakshitam Umasritam Sakavina Sakarnam Mahamatim Tivyamayoravahanam Ridasyasinam Sarasarnanatam Kuham Sadanam Saranam Prapadye Yaku Handutu Sarahara Devala Yasubravas Varita Yavina Varanda Mandita Kara Yasvita Padmasana Ya Brahmachuta Sankara Pratra Bidevasata Pujita Samampatu Saraswati Bhagavati Nihisa Jadyapaha Om Namah Shivaya Gurave Sachidananda Murtaye Nisparanchaya Santaya Shri Shivanandaya Te Namaha Shri Vishnu Devanandaya Te Namaha Om Sarva Mangla Manglaye Shive Savarta Sadike Saranye Triambake Gauri Narayani Namostute Narayani Namostute Om No breakfast yet. We'll have breakfast on Discord soon. So for those of you who'd like to join us over there for a more conversational and intimate breakfast time, you can do that as soon as the prayers are done in about 20 minutes or so. 20 minutes, half an hour. Thank you for all the roses. Thank you so much. I came upon a wedding that old families had contrived, with Bethlehem the bridegroom and Babylon the bride. Oh, great Babylon was trembling, and she stood there naked with me, and Bethlehem inflamed us both like the shy one at some orgy. And when we fell together, all our flesh was like a veil that we had to draw aside to see the serpent eat its tail. Oh. Some women wait for Jesus, and some we wait for Cain. So I'll hang upon this altar, and I'll hoist my axe again. And I'll take the one who finds me back to where it all began, back when Jesus was the honeymoon, and Cain was just a man. And we'll read from pleasant Bibles that are bound in blood and skin, that Asherah is gathering all her children back again. Asherah was a cannibal, right? There's a reason why she was forgotten. Sometimes she could be terrible. But sometimes sometimes Yahweh could be terrible too, you know? So I think it's worthwhile to remember the terrible aspects of God sometimes. Terrible aspects of some of the ideas that we have invented as people. Have I always used a veil during prayers? No, not always, but it is a typical Jewish practice. I have this prayer shawl here, which belonged to my grandfather, which sometimes I wear, right? This has the typical prayer shawl prayer on it. Baruch atah Asherah anat malacha ha'olam asher kedishani b'mitzvotav v'tzivani li'itatif latzitzit. Put this one on. So this is a tallis, right? And this is a garment that's traditionally only worn by men. But I'm probably man enough, right? So I wear this one sometime, and then I have other scarves that are not, they're not kosher talit. They haven't been blessed and knotted in the proper way. But I still wear them because I pay attention to color, you know? So now let's say a Sanskrit prayer called the Maharityunjaya mantra. This prayer is associated with Shiva. It's only worn by men, then why am I wearing it? That's just disrespectful. There's a lot that I do in this prayer sequence that is disrespectful. Merging Hebrew and Sanskrit prayers, disrespectful. Repeating the name Yahweh, very disrespectful. Saying the name Asherah, also disrespectful to some people at some time in some place. And yet here I am on my tiny little TikTok platform saying these words in this way, right? And I offend people all the time. My gender offends people. My language offends people. But modern living is disrespectful. It's how we grow. Yes, growth is painful. Did you know? Growth is painful. Trayambakam yajamai sigandim pushche vardhanam Urva Rukami Bhavandanan Mrityur Mukshiyam Amritatam Om Triambakam Yajamai Sigandim Pushtivardhanam Urva Rukami Bhavandanan Mrityur Mukshiyam Amritatam Om Triambakam Yajamai Sigandim Pushtivardhanam Urva Rukami Bhavandanan Mrityur Mukshiyam Amritatam Om Sarvesham Svastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashantu Makashid Dukhabhagbhave Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotir Gamaya Mrityur Mamritam Gamaya Om Purnamadam Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishate Om Shanti 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 Om Peace Peace Peace. I am a boy or a girl. What about you? I learned Sanskrit to the extent that I can claim to know Sanskrit, which is not much. I learned these words at the Shivananda Yoga Ashram, not far from where I grew up. My parents took me to this monastery when I was young. You sang that with me. You know that prayer. Where did you learn that prayer, Yuki? If my life had a soundtrack, what would I play as I walk down the street? Well, you know, I'm actually in a fairly unique position to give my life a soundtrack. I make videos every day, and every day I choose music to set them to. You're a Buddhist pagan, so you've encountered the Mahamrityunjaya mantra somewhere. Perhaps in a yoga class you took? So I learned that prayer at the Shivananda ashram. When I was very young, it was sort of drilled into my mind before I knew what I was learning. Same thing with these Hebrew prayers, actually. Most of them, the Shema V'Ahavta, I memorized them before I knew what they meant. That's what makes it religion, right? The prayer says, teach it to your children. So I learned them before I knew what they meant. Very much, in a book, then on a CD. What tradition, if you don't mind me asking, if you know the name of the tradition, if there was a specific lineage? So I know, like, the Mahamrityunjaya mantra, it's very famous and widespread, but I do wonder how more specifically we learn these things. We memorize all prayers before we even get them. Yes, that's what makes them prayers. So I learned that prayer when I was young. Pure Land. Interesting. I've not heard of that group. I learned these prayers when I was young, and then when I started feminizing my voice, about 2 years ago, I started practicing them in earnest, right? Saying them every day and really engaging with the translation. And with that comes some English prayers. This is usually folks' favorite. This is an American prayer by a musical group, a folk group, or pop group. Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros. Their music is very popular on TikTok. So I sing this song. And it's a prayer about prayer. It's very Mahayana. It's a Buddhist tradition. Isn't that interesting that this prayer can span 2 religions? I mean, what's the boundary for religion? I don't know. Mahayana Buddhism. I haven't studied much Mahayana Buddhism. Not very much at all. You've been practicing voice feminization with your morning prayers, have you? That's so great. It's a very important way to do it. Yeah. I learned how to feminize my voice from a really incredible teacher named Ziana Eros, who's become a good friend of mine, and it's worth checking out her work. Yeah, repetition is important. She's the one that I got the vocal meditation from, the long sustained harmonic meditation. For real? If you live it, I'm so Buddhist. I mean, I've studied a decent amount of Buddhist theology, right? Like I've gone on meditation retreats, but they've all been Americanized, right? The Insight Meditation Center I studied at. I went on a few retreats there, but it's very, the theology is it's an atheist theology, if you will. Boundary is language, as it wouldn't exist without it. Not sure what you mean there, but it's a It's a beautiful set of words. It's a bit of poetry. No, I did not learn that chant from the Mahayana prayer. I learned it at the Shivananda ashram, right? So it's a prayer that I originally assumed was rooted in Hinduism, and yeah, the translation here. Let me pull up this prayer, because it's very clearly making reference to Shiva. So that can be tricky. Come on, here it is. Yes, Om Triambakam. Right, we praise the fragrance that sees with 3 eyes and enhances prosperity. May we be liberated from the bondage of death like the watermelon, which separates effortlessly from the vine. Let them not turn us away from immortality. Right, so this is clearly a reference to Shiva, right? Shiva with the 3 eyes. Like, it doesn't surprise me to see that prayer is carried over into Mahayana Buddhism. Right, Mahayana Buddhism is more theistic, generally speaking. Good morning, Abi. How are you? How are you? You've been vibing with some Thai Buddhism recently, especially with the parts concerned with animism. Yes, there's a whole lot of Buddhism that I know very little about, right? Very little about, because I don't know, I'm exposed to what I'm exposed to. In Tibet, they tend to worship both pantheons. It's awesome. Yeah. That's so cool. You're good. Just sorting some stuff. It's good to see you. Yeah, it's been a few days. I'm glad you're well. I'm glad to be here with you. So they pray to Shiva and Kali. What a great crowd today. Yuki, have you been here before and just not spoken? I'm really appreciating what you're adding to the conversation. I hope you'll stick around and come back again. So, I got distracted. You distracted me. I guess that's the game, right? Distract me with interesting theological questions. You distracted me. I was going to sing a song by Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros called I Don't Want to Pray. Dual practice religion is common in most places. Yes, you spoke last time. You were just quiet. Well, thank you for being here. Little by little, the good ones are pushing out the bad ones during my live feeds, which is great. Yeah, it's really cool to watch this community form. It's slow. It's very slow going. And people come and people go. But yeah, right now there's a really great core group here. And of course I want you here. I don't want to pray to my maker. Oh, I just want to be feeling free. Not just who I am, but the pink in golden land and that wide, wild sky over me. Help me to the sun. Hey, I'm looking everywhere. See, I'm looking to become not the prayer, but the prayer. And I don't want to pray, no. I don't want to pray, no, no, no. I don't want to pray, we don't want to pray, pray. Love Allah, Allah made love, and Yahweh, Yahweh made hate. Asher, Asher, I made good, and Anat made bad. Eloheinu made love, and Yahweh, Yahweh made hate. Love Allah, God made, God made, God made. But I don't want to pray to my maker, no. I just want to be feeling free. Not just who I am, but the pink and golden land and that wide, wild sky over me. Pardon, God and Mom, what I'm saying isn't fair. See, I'm looking to become not the prayer, but the prayer. And I don't want to pray, no. I don't want to pray, no, no, no. I don't want to pray, we don't want to pray, pray. And it's not much good to talk, better to walk it. Ooh, not much good to take, better to give. We are done, forgiven, and forgotten of our sins. And I promise you, my friends, all that dies will live again. So, pardon, God and Mom, what I'm saying isn't fair. See, I'm looking to become not the prayer, but the prayer. And I don't want to pray, no. I don't want to pray, no, no, no. I don't want to pray, we don't want to pray, pray. I love Allah, Allah made love, and Yahweh, Yahweh made hate. Asher, Asher, I made good, and Anat made bad. Eloheinu made love, and Yahweh, Yahweh made hate. I love Allah, God made, God made, God made. But I don't want to pray to my maker. I just want to be what I see. Not like who I am, or not like in a book, or the leaves of trees that shook from a word that means only not a thing. No. Pardon, God and Mom, what I'm saying isn't fair. See, I'm looking to become not the prayer, but the prayer, and I don't want to pray, no. I don't want to pray, no, no, no. I don't want to pray, we don't want to pray, pray. I love Allah, Allah made love, and Yahweh, Yahweh made hate. Asher, Asherah made good, and Anat made bad. Eloheinu made love, and Yahweh, Yahweh made hate. I love Allah. God made, God made, God made me. Except it's a lie. None of those gods exist. So where are we to start, right? If I think, oh, none of these gods exist, they're just empty words. How am I to know how to begin to relate to this thing that I know I need to relate to? Ishtar, you said it exactly as I would have. That's precisely what I would have said, or will say now. Start with your roots, ancestor veneration. If we ask ourselves, how did religion begin? What is its origin? We would find ancestor veneration, right? In Catalhayuk, 9,000 years ago, they buried their ancestors underneath their floor. When someone died, they would keep them in their houses, and then they would build a new house on top, right? This is an image that was found in Catalhayuk. This is a replica of a sculpture that was found buried deep under layers and layers of human settlement, right? Go to the root. Go to the root, right? So there's quite a lot about Jewish theology that I really don't like and cannot relate to. So as I try to engage in it, I think about the root, right? I think about my ancestors. Like, I have to relate to it because of the things that my grandparents went through, and the things that their parents went through, and their parents went through, right? That is my history, and so that is where I begin. Yeah, always starts at the roots. So easy to forget. So maybe your parents are Protestant, right? And maybe you don't really want to engage with Protestantism. If you go back far enough, then they were Catholics before then. If you go back before that, they were some flavor of pagan, although I don't necessarily want to use that word, right? You can trace your ancestry far back enough that eventually you will find some kind of theology that is worth relating to. Your ancestors were colonizers. Mine were too, right? My ancestors were colonizers. My ancestors were also Holocaust survivors, and they can be the same thing at once. And this is what we need to grapple with if we are trying to connect to the religious beliefs of those who came before us. So, yes, that's what I would say. Go to the root. And, so why am I saying prayers in Sanskrit? How is that the root? I mean, that's the root because that is where my parents brought me before I could speak, right? So it's not my root genetically, but it's my root in terms of my memory, right? My earliest religious experiences are at the Shivananda ashram, not in synagogue. So that's why I bring both of these traditions here to my morning prayer ritual. And perhaps it will change over time, but this is how I connect to my roots right now. What if we don't know the language? We'll find language that you can speak. I personally find that praying in a foreign language, a language that I don't know, is very valuable. What if you can't find your roots? As in, find out what they were. Well, you can, right? Like, it takes work. And part of that work is a kind of imagining, right? Like, I can't historically know all of the facts about my roots. I'll never know the names of my great-great-grandparents, right? Even just 150 years ago, that information is lost. So a lot of my study into my roots has been a kind of imagining, right? Like this blend of history and religion. You learn enough history so that you can tell yourself a vivid story. And it does take work. It absolutely takes work. But it's work that I think is worthwhile. And so we can engage in it. And yes, what if you don't know the language? Well, you make that up too, right? Like, I don't know Sanskrit. I've memorized some words in Sanskrit, and that was work. But it was a creative kind of work, right? Like, as I memorized the words and as I learned the English translation, the meaning became clearer to me. If I weren't to know the language, would praying in that language make the prayer as empty as there? Well, no. So actually, quite literally, I do not speak Sanskrit. I do not speak Hebrew. I cannot claim to know those languages with any kind of fluency. So when I study prayers in those languages, I read translations, right? And the translation is given to me by some other person with some other motive, right? Like, I don't actually know. When I read ancient Canaanite rituals, ancient Canaanite myths, like, I can't learn ancient Canaanite. I can't know that language. I have to rely on translators. And I think that's okay. Good morning. Just popping on. You're so welcome. I'm glad you're here. Yes, I've gotten distracted talking about how to study religion, and I think I've scared everyone away. But that's okay, because the people who are here are good people. And I like feeling listened to, not just watched. No! Yuki, it's fine. I mean, figuring out how to do this show is a constant process, and I'm balancing always between, like, numbers and quality engagement. So I'm going to shift onto Discord soon, and maybe no one will join me on Discord. It's possible no one will join me. But, you know, there's a balance to be found between quality engagement and engaging, and I don't actually want to be saying empty words to a bunch of TikTok numbers. I want to be speaking to real humans. I didn't scare you away. You find it interesting. I suppose even when I learn a prayer from someone, it would be there. Yeah. Prayer is all about interpretation. All of this is about interpretation. There's words, and then there's genotype and phenotype, right? This has been a good live. Your favorite so far. Oh, I'm glad, Robert. Right, in biology, we make this distinction between genotype, which is the information in the genome, and phenotype, which is the expression of it, right? The physical manifestation in the world of the thing, right? So the prayer, whether I know it or not, is simply a genotype, and then how I say it, and how it makes me feel, and the sounds coming out of my mouth, and how it makes you feel, those are all phenotype. And so there's always a balance between the two. And I actually think there's a lot of value in saying words that I don't strictly know the meaning of, because it allows more flexibility in expression, right? It allows me to understand the prayer as I need to. Okay, everything I'm saying makes total sense. Great. I'm glad that analogy makes sense to people. Yeah, I went to grad school thinking I was going to prove that communes were organisms, that religions were organisms, and so I started to think very deeply about what a genotype or a phenotype was, and my professors just rolled their eyes at me, and they're like, what are you talking about? You can't prove that the Shema is a genotype. Like, what on earth? Not that you're shocked, but great, good, yeah, so that's a core part of my theology, my religious beliefs, is that there's a unity between evolutionary theory and what else, and so we ought to be able to use terms like genotype and phenotype to understand. Jada Vera. Jada, did we go to high school together? Are you the Jada Vera that I'm thinking of? Maybe, maybe not. But I did send Jada, a friend named Jada, a cookbook many years ago. Yes! Wow! Wow! Oh my god! Well, how are you? We haven't spoken in years. In actual years, we haven't spoken. That's incredible. Hi. I hope you're well. I hope you're well. You've seen me catch up with like 2 people from high school in the last week. Long time, but you've watched and loved my press. Well, thank you, Jada. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's a funny thing about TikTok. Like, it does reach. Like, I meet people. I re-meet people on the internet. It's so great. I'm so happy you're here. Here, let me follow you. and I will send you a link to the Discord server soon, not right now, but I will follow you now. Great. I'm so glad you're here. Okay, so we should probably wrap up, because I do have to move goats in soon, very soon. I have to go move my goats, but we'll do 2 more prayers. Arati and Kaddish. So the word Arati in Sanskrit means flame or light. Here we have Arati. It's our little altar flame. So we'll say Arati in Sanskrit, repeating various names of Hindu gods. Yes, Tuesday is goat day. I'm glad you like my goats, Data. We'll say Arati about light, and the names of various Hindu gods, starting with Ganesh. Here's Ganesh. Ganesh, I'll put Ganesh here for Arati. And then we'll say Kaddish, and the word Kaddish means holy in Hebrew. And Kaddish is a prayer of mourning. Jaya Jaya Arati Vina Vinayaka Vina Vinayaka Shri Ganesha Jaya Jaya Arati Subramanya Subramanya Kartikeya Jaya Jaya Arati Venugopala Venugopala Venuola Papa Vidura Navanita Chora Jaya Jaya Arati Venkanta Ramana Venkanta Ramana Sankatarana Sita Rama Radhe Shama Jaya Jaya Arati Gauri Manohara Gauri Manohara Bhavani Sankara Samba Sadashiva Uma Maheshwara Jaya Jaya Arati Raja Rajeshwari Raja Rajeshwari Tripura Sundari Mahalakshmi Mahasaraswati Mahakali Mahashakti Jaya Jaya Arati Anjaneya Anjaneya Hanumanta Jaya Jaya Arati Dattatreya Dattatreya Trimurti Avatara Jaya Jaya Arati Adityaya Adityaya Bhaskareya Jaya Jaya Arati Sanistaraya Sanistaraya Bhaskaraya Jaya Jaya Arati Sankaracaya Sankaracaya Advaita Gurave Jaya Jaya Arati Sadgurunata Sadgurunata Shivananda Jaya Jaya Arati Vishnu Devananda Vishnu Devananda Vishnu Devananda Jaya Jaya Arati Agastya Munaye Agastya Munaye Shriyama Priyaye Jaya Jaya Arati Ayapa Samine Ayapa Samine Dharma Shastave Jaya Jaya Arati Jesus Gurave Moses Gurave Buddha Gurave Jaya Jaya Arati Muhammad Gurave Guru Nanak Gurave Samastya Gurubho Namaha Jaya Jaya Arati Venugopala Natatra Suyobati Natandrakaratam Nima Vidyobati Kutoyamagni Twameva Bantamanabanti Sarvam Tasya Basya Samidam Vivanti Gange Kayamune Kaiva Govari Saraswati Narmade Siddhi Kaveri Namastitam Namo Namaha Tvameva Mata Chapita Tvameva Tvameva Bandisha Saka Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Javinam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Kayina Vacha Manasendriyarva Buddhyatmanava Prakrite Sabhavad Karumyadyad Mangalam Parasmahi Narayana Hiti Sarmar Payami Sarvadharmam Prabhichaya Mamikam Savarnam Vrija Aham Sva Sarva Papayo Mokshayami Masucha. Whatever actions I perform with my body, speech, mind, senses, my nature, my intellect, or my emotions, all these, I dedicate to you, to all of you. Thank you all so much for being here with me today, old friends and new. Very old friends and new. That's so special. I'm so glad you appreciated it, Jada. I would love to actually talk with you for a hot second. I've got one more prayer, Kaddish, and then if you'd like to just pop on Discord for a moment, I don't know if you use that software, but as soon as I stop the feed, I can send you a link. I'd love to check in with you. So it's been so long. So Kaddish, the word Kaddish in Hebrew means holy, but it's very old. It's my partner's name that I took from her, Kadosh, holy. The oldest version of it that I know comes from the name of this goddess, Kadesh, an Egyptian Canaanitic goddess. There's a city on the Syrian coast named Kadesh that was destroyed 3,000 years ago. And perhaps from that point until today, the word Kadesh has meant holy, and a holiness that's associated with death, like Isaiah seeing the destruction of his city, and angels covering the throne of God. Kadosh, 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 holy, holy, holy. So, today we will say Kaddish for all of those people who have died of coronavirus the last day. And if there are any people that you are mourning today, or people that you want us to hold in your mind, please give us their names so that we can remember them together. Holy was also one of the titles of Asherah. Yes, Kadesh, all the goddess names, they merged. So we'll say Kaddish for all those people who suffer and continue to suffer and have suffered since our lineage began. Here's the oldest, deepest family tree that I can show you, right, with archaea and bacteria on it. This tree is 3.8 billion years old. And for the last 3.8 billion years, we have been suffering. So that is what it is to live. And so we will say Kaddish for all those living things, both old and new, who suffer today. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah. B'yama divrach yute v'yamlich malchute. B'chayachon uv'yamechon uv'chaye de kol beit Yisrael. B'gala uv'izman karif imru. Amen. Yehi shemei Rabbah miv'arach li'olam umei omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei de kudisha brechu. Le'elam min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata. Diamiran b'yama v'imru. Amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'yachol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. O say shalom b'mramav. Huya aseh shalom. Aleinu v'yachol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oh, say shalom b'mramav, Huya say shalom aleinu, v'yalechol Yisrael, v'imru, v'imru, amen. Well, thank you all. Thank you all so very much. Gosh, I'm hungry, and now it's time for breakfast. So I'm gonna switch on over to Discord. Jada, I will send you a link momentarily as soon as I turn my phone around. Yeah, and I hope you all will join me. Okay.